Oh boy. I guess I better get this out the way, huh? Especially since, this video is going viral and all, seeing other people talking about it. I know sooner or later you guys are going to be asking me the same, about this also. So might as well get this out the way. Kony2012. In case you haven't heard about this yet, and at this point I'd be very surprised if you didn't, this is basically a half-hour video on YouTube, and I'm pretty sure it might be other places as well, but where I saw it was on YouTube, which is basically about this dude in Uganda who basically is known for terrorizing the people there in the countrysides and kidnapping children and using the girls as basically sex slaves and using the boys as soldiers, like child soldiers, and they're basically there, committing, horrible acts in his name. Like he's, training them to be his army and, further his power in the regions that he's terrorizing. And the whole video is basically this whole plea to call attention to this so that there would be American support, particularly in the government, to go out there and actually arrest this guy. Like, send U.S. troops, or at the very least send enough support to, advise the people down there, troops down there, or maybe send even NATO support. Basically just sending American support to strengthen the efforts to arrest this guy. Like he's a bad seed, he's a bad guy, he's, raping people, killing people, torturing people, and, kidnapping and killing and raping children, and we got to stop this guy. And there's this big push, to make this big movement. So by April, they're going to be going to, major cities. And the whole point is he's not well known. Like, not many people knew about this guy, and he's been terrorizing the region for years. Like, for at least a good 10 years, 12 years, if I remember correctly. And it's like he's been able to get away with this because the world has not known about him. But now that we have these global connections, particularly through Facebook and other social media, they're trying to use that to spread his name around, like through Facebook, to get the whole, the global community to be aware of this guy, so that the whole world could come to bear on him, so that, there'll be enough attention, he'd be so well known. Or it's basically to use the movie's terms, to make him famous enough so that everybody knows who he is and what his crimes are, so they can finally go out and go after him. Now, having seen the video and thought about it for some time, on one hand, I can understand why this video is been put out there. I understand the at least I understand where the person is coming from. At least he seems to be this really idealistic guy who wants to do good in the region, and he's all optimistic, and he's trying to get, people behind him. It's like, look, this is a terrible guy. Look at what he's doing in the region. He's a bad guy. We need to stop him. And this is all, this sort of, I hate to say bleeding heart because it sounds condescending, but that is basically, the guy wants to do good in the region. He has been, apparently been raising money and doing things like building schools and trying to do things to, to have an early watch, early detection thing, so that when they see his army moving, that they can warn the villages that he's coming. He's doing all these things, to try to make a difference, and now he's trying to, like, empower other people, like, you can make a difference, we can stop him. And yeah, this sounds like a great noble cause. But, see, I hate this because it's going to make me sound like I'm a dick, but to quote a favorite comedian of mine, I have thoughts. And these thoughts make me kind of hesitant to fully support this. I want to, but I have thoughts, and I'm going to share some of them with you in the form of questions. And I'm doing it in the form of questions because I'm not trying to act like I have the answers here, or that I know better than this guy. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, but I have thoughts. I'm going to share them with you as to why I'm kind of, I'm kind of undecided on this position. One is sort of a nitpick. Let me just get this out the way because it's a dumb little nitpick. I hate the fact that he's saying he's trying to make the guy famous. You don't make notorious people famous, okay? You don't make assholes famous. You make them infamous, okay? There's a difference. When you try to make somebody famous, that basically means that there's something favorable about them that you want. That's the reason why you're trying to make them well known. Oh, this person's famous because he's a well-known celebrity. He does something that pleases people. This guy's not doing anything that, you know, is, well, at least he's not being painted in a picture that he's somebody who we should be admiring. So you're not trying to make him famous, you're trying to make him infamous, all right? Let's get the terms correct. Again, that's just a nitpick. I know it's kind of asinine, but yeah, that kind of bothered me when I was hearing it all the time. Let's make him famous. I'm like, no, you don't famous. No, that's the wrong fucking word. The next thing that kind of bothers me is the approach. The approach that we have to stop this guy, possibly, I mean, we have to go and arrest him. Well, how exactly are you going to go about arresting this dude? Are you planning to come in kind of peacefully and say, we're trying to take this guy and put him in handcuffs and, you know, take him to be tried? There's going to be conflict. There's going to be a fight, all right? He's not, I don't really get, you know, the impression that this is a dude who's going to be giving up easily. So there's going to be a fight. And who's going to be fighting for him? The very children you're trying to save. Remember, the biggest crime that this guy supposedly is committing is that he's kidnapping children and using them for his own private little army of, you know, of child soldiers and sex slaves. So it's the child soldiers that you're going to be shooting at. That's a kind of fucked up situation when you think about it. You're trying to rescue these children, but if you're going to be trying to stop this guy, and these kids are going to be shooting at you because, you know, if they don't, he's going to kill them. They're in a kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If you watch the video, you'll know what I mean. But, and by the way, just to get this out the way, I knew about all this shit that was going on in Africa years ago. It kind of insulted my intelligence a little bit, but then again, I understand. But we saying that nobody knows about this guy, nobody knows what's going on in those regions. I knew. I was one of the people who gave a damn, but no one was listening to us because they were, you know, too busy, you know, being sucked up in consumer culture. But that's another video for another fucking time. Anyway, you're gonna be, this is a really kind of effed up dilemma. It's not as clear cut as let's go and get the bad guy. You're gonna have to fight the kids to do it, because if these kids don't fight, they die. And yet, if you're gonna be sending troops after them, well, these kids are gonna die too, except the blood's gonna be on your hands. Even if you're not the person shooting the gun, if you contributed to this cause, if you put money towards it, if you were trying to put awareness to galvanize the movement to go after this guy, the blood's kind of on your hands too. What do we do about that? Is there another way to do this? Isn't there a way to do this? It's not as clear cut as the video is trying to make it look like some type of G.I. Joe cartoon. Let's go get Cobra. It's not. There's some kind of really dark aspects to this that we're going to have to fully discuss if we're really going to be taking this seriously. And there's nothing in that documentary that made me think that that aspect was not touched on at all, and that bothered me. What do you do about the fact that if you go after this guy, he's obviously going to be using the children to fight for him? What do you do about that? That's my first real question. Well, you know, besides the whole famous thing. The next thing that bothers me is, what about the situation that caused this guy to show up in the first place? People have to realize that really bad situations don't just show up ex nihilo. Okay? It's not. Things will come out of nowhere. There's a reason why things like this happen. And usually situations have to exist in order for it to happen. Mosquitoes don't just simply pop out of nowhere. There's usually some stagnant pool somewhere where they were able to lay their eggs and breed. Where's the stagnant pool in this situation? There is nothing in the documentary that points out fixing the conditions in Uganda that allowed this guy to pop up and do what he's doing. I know that they were trying to, if you watch the video, he basically said that this is a dude with no political agenda. There's nothing he's particularly fighting for. He's just trying to cement his power. I find that kind of suspect. Maybe that, all right, let's give the documentary the benefit of the doubt, even though I really don't want to, but let's give it the benefit of the doubt that, yeah, he right now is just doing what he's doing because he's a power-hungry maniac who just loves using kids as soldiers. I don't think that's how he started. Okay? And even if that is how he started, there is something about the region he lives in the economic and political situation of that region, which allowed him to do this. Simply arresting him is not going to take care of the problem. You're really going to start taking care of the problem when you handle whatever situation that caused him to show up. In other words, you need to clean the stagnant pool. So where is the stagnant pool, and what makes it stagnant in this particular situation? That's my next question. What caused him to show up? And can those problems be addressed in a way that doesn't mean you're just going to be going in and exploiting these people? Because many times, this is going to lead to my next question. How do you know that the United States isn't going to end up fucking this particular region over? The documentary itself points out that the United States does not go into other particular regions that are full of unrest unless there is some type of economic gain for the country. They pointed out, they just point blank stated that the only reason why the United States has not moved in was because there was no economic interest, no political interest. There was nothing to gain in their eyes, which, by the way, should really get people, if this has not dawned on you yet about why the United States goes overseas and enters other countries, that should definitely give you pause if you haven't figured that shit out yet. They never go into another particular country to solve problems unless there's something in it for them. In this case, the United States government and the business interests that control them. There was nothing in Uganda that caused them to want to go in and do something. Now there's public pressure that's supposedly going to be raised to get these people to do something about it. And because senators want to look benevolent, now they're like, oh, we're on board with this. We just need the support. Especially since this right now is an election term. Granted, it's an election term for the presidency, but you best believe that, the Senate is also being looked at right now. If the United States ends up going into Uganda, who's to say that they're going to be going in a fully benevolent way? Because so far, their track record doesn't exactly show that they go in there for benevolent reasons. Completely altruistic benevolent reasons. And for anybody who still believes that the United States does that, it's time to stop being naive. It really is time to stop being fucking naive. Before, there was no reason, at least from the government standpoint, to go into Uganda. The moral reason did not concern them whatsoever. So that means if they're going to be forced to go in there, they're going to try to find some profit into going in. Should that be addressed? And should we allow that to go on? That's my question. Will you feel comfortable with trying to push a government that is always trying to look for some money or some type of gain to skim off of operations and missions like this? Should we just allow them to go on and do that? Shouldn't we be discussing that too? That's my next question. Again, this is not really addressed. It's hinted at, but only in a way of saying, oh, these people weren't listening to us before, now we're going to get them to listen. Well, what, you think they're going to just suddenly stop, being manipulative bastards trying to find some way to profit off of a situation like this and go into a country, try to take its resources or, control its government in some way? You don't think that's not in the back of their minds? That's the reason why they didn't go in before is because they didn't see any way to do that. And again, the movie admits this. Not really addressed in the documentary. That bothered me. Finally, there is, this kind of goes into the question I just said, but the international organization, and I'm really sorry that I'm not remembering this off the top of my head, the organization that has Kony on the top of their list of international criminals to go after. This is on their word about how horrible this guy is. And again, I'm not doubting that this guy is a horrible dude. But, again, I don't think that he's the only guy out there doing what he's doing. There's probably some other people. And one weird thing about warlords running around is that there's always other warlords who are somehow fighting against them and sort of keeping them in check. You get rid of this guy, what other people are going to come over to take over the power vacuum? This goes back to my question about the situation that the country is in and the political and economic and, cultural situation that country is in, which allowed this dude to be able to rise up to do what he's doing in the first place. Who's to say what other maniac isn't going to be showing up to take his fucking place? Has this organization considered this? Is this movement, this Kony2012 movement, considered this? Are they identifying other warlords and other people who would just be picking up where this guy left off. Because I can tell you right now, as somebody who's been studying this sort of shit, this is not the only guy who's going around kidnapping, you know, child soldiers. He's not the only, I'm sorry, kidnapping children to become child soldiers. He's not the only one. This is common in many regions, nations in that particular region. This is common, particularly in civil wars in Africa. Now, this is not to say, and again, this is something that kind of, many people get the impression that Africa is just a complete fucking shithole continent. That's not really true. There are countries in Africa that are stable, and it is bothering other particular African nations that things like this are happening in Uganda. But that said, the places that are full of unrest, this sort of shit happens a lot. Why are we just simply hearing about Kony and not about all these other particular people? Because believe you me, those motherfuckers are out there doing the same shit, and we're just focusing on Kony? Shouldn't we be focusing on the practice itself and what causes them to do this? Wouldn't that be a little bit more beneficial? Wouldn't that ultimately, in the long run, do more to solve the problem than going after this one guy? Just saying. Now, those are the particular issues that I'm having with this Kony movement right now. There are other things, but I can't really articulate them well enough right now. It's probably because I'm a little bit rushed. But those are the main things that I'm thinking about when concerning this Kony situation. I'm sure you guys can think of some more. Especially those of you who've seen the video and who probably know a lot about this particular thing. But these are the things that are, you know, concerning me. And I would like to see some discussion on that within the movement itself. The people who are willing to donate to this cause and the people who are, you know, sharing the video and who are all gung-ho to start plastering his face all over the major cities in April. I hope they are discussing this. If you're one of these people who are ready to do that and you're watching this video right now, such as it is because it's really just a recording, I hope these particular issues have crossed your mind and you're discussing them with others. If you're not, you need to. Because if you don't, you could possibly be causing more trouble than you're solving. And that would suck even more, because then you'd be responsible for it. This is not a clear-cut situation. This isn't nearly as, you know, black and white as this documentary, or let's just call it what it is, this propaganda piece, is trying to make it. I mean, as much as it's, you know, putting, like, you know, that's something else that really bothered me about the video, putting this kid up there and asking him questions in this childlike way and trying to make it look, this is so simple, even a kid can understand it. No, fuck you. Don't insult my intelligence. This isn't nearly as clear-cut as it sounds. Yeah, you want to say it's clear-cut that this guy is a bad guy? Okay, fine. We'll say that because of what he's done. But the situation itself, what caused him to be there, why Uganda's having to deal with this guy, and what would happen when you get rid of him, that's what makes this a complicated issue. Hell, just the fact of going after him to begin with militaristically is not clear-cut. Because, one, who are you trying to pressure to do it? A government which is not exactly an altruistic, moralistic government. Two, you're going to have to shoot kids to do it. Are you willing to do that? These are questions that need to be discussed. This should have been brought up in a serious way. I understand that if you do that, then you're going to have a whole lot of people on the fence, and you don't really want people on the fence. You want action now, and you want people behind you now so you can get this done. And yeah, I understand that you don't put these type of things in a propaganda video, but you're dealing with adults here, all right? And adults are going to have to ask these particular questions. And we have to, you know, fully examine all angles and all avenues of this particular situation and what you can do about it before I can fully take it seriously and be comfortable with it. Anyway, that's what I got to say about it. So, yeah, anybody's going to be asking me about the Kony thing, yeah, this is what I think about it right now. And I'm pretty sure you guys, many of you guys who are used to watching my videos, who've been watching for a long time, I'm sure you guys have your own concerns that I haven't thought of yet. Feel free to share them. Anyway, that's it. Catch you guys later.